You are not even a real man, you are just my personal ATM machine. Those words are still ringing in my ears as I type this. My girlfriend Maddie screamed that loud enough for our entire apartment building to hear 2 days ago. Every neighbor on our floor heard her define our 6-month relationship as nothing more than a financial transaction. So I did what any reasonable person would do when someone calls them an ATM. I closed the account. Look, I need to get this out because it is eating me alive. And honestly, I am still processing what just happened. I thought I knew this woman, but apparently I have been living with a complete stranger. It started with the stupidest fight, something about me working late again instead of going to her friend Ashley's birthday dinner. I don't even remember exactly what triggered it, but before I knew it, Maddie was screaming at me in our living room. And I mean screaming. But then, God, this is where it gets humiliating. She literally threw open our front door and started performing for the hallway. Like she wanted an audience for this destruction. You want to know what the problem is? She yelled into the corridor, making sure every single neighbor could hear. The problem is, he is not even a real man. He is just my personal ATM machine. That is all he is to me. I could see Mrs. Thompson from 4B peeking out her door. Mr. Johnson across the hall was pretending to get his mail. And there is Maddie, hands on her hips, tears streaming down her face, soaking up the attention, like she is on some reality television show. She kept going, listing every way I would apparently failed as a boyfriend, but always circling back to how my only value was the money I provided. Just standing there in our doorway, broadcasting to the world that I was nothing but a walking wallet to her. I didn't move from the couch. I didn't yell back. I didn't defend myself. I just sat there watching her with what I am sure was a completely blank expression. My silence wasn't shock, though. It was clarity. You know that moment when chaos suddenly becomes crystal clear? That is what happened. She had just defined our relationship in the most brutal terms possible, and suddenly I knew exactly what I had to do. I work as a project manager at a tech company. My whole job is about planning, executing, and knowing when to cut losses on failed projects. And sitting there, listening to her publicly announce that I was just a funding source. Well, the project evaluation was complete. Time to terminate and move on. When she finally ran out of steam and slammed the door, breathing like she had just finished a marathon, she stared at me waiting for some big reaction. "What are you doing?" she demanded when I picked up my laptop. "Aren't you going to say anything?" I didn't look up from the screen. "I am documenting the end of our arrangement," I said in the calmest voice I could manage. I spent the next 20 minutes typing up a formal 30-day notice to vacate, printed it out, handed it to her. Her face went from confusion to disbelief to pure panic. "What is this? Is this some kind of joke?" "Our relationship was transactional," I said, using her exact words from the hallway. "You just publicly declared the terms. I am simply closing the account. You have 30 days. Then I walked into the bedroom and closed the door, leaving her standing there with the consequences of her own words. Reddit. Was I wrong here? Because part of me feels like maybe I overreacted, but another part of me feels like she showed me exactly who she really was, and I would be crazy to ignore it. Update 1. Okay, so after reading all your comments, thank you BTW. Seriously, I realize I left out some pretty important context about how we got here. Let me back up and fill in the gaps because, Jesus, it is actually worse than I thought. First off, the financial arrangement wasn't some sugar daddy situation like some of you assumed. Here's what really happened. I met Maddie 6 months ago at a work networking event. She was vibrant, fun, completely different from my usually structured life. We started dating, and for the first few months, things seemed great. She had this energy about her, always planning these elaborate social events, always dressed perfectly, always seemed to have money for expensive hobbies. But here is what I didn't piece together until later: she never actually talked about her job. When I asked, she would give vague answers about freelance marketing or consulting work. Red flag number 1 that I completely ignored. 3 months in, she gets suddenly evicted from her apartment. The story kept changing. First it was a rent increase, then it was problems with roommates, then it was some issue with the lease. But she needed a place to stay just temporarily. Look, I am not stupid. I could smell the bullshit, but I was curious about her, like trying to solve a puzzle. So I made her a deal. I told her she could move in for exactly 3 months probationary period. I had cover rent and utilities. Her job was to find stable employment and prove we were building something real together. At the end of 3 months, we would either sign a new lease together as equals, or she'd move out. Clean, simple, fair. It wasn't a blank check. It was a trial period with clear expectations. Well, guess what? 2 months in. She hadn't applied for a single job. Every time I brought it up, she would deflect with sex, or tears, or suddenly planning some romantic evening. She was treating my apartment like a vacation resort, and me like her personal concierge. But wait, it gets so much worse. Remember how she was always perfectly dressed and had money for expensive hobbies? Yesterday, I decided to do some digging. I checked our shared expenses, started really looking at patterns. She has been using my credit cards I gave her for emergencies and grocery shopping, but she had been treating her friends to expensive dinners, buying designer clothes, paying for group activities. I found charges for a weekend spa trip with Ashley that cost $800. $800 of my money for her and her friend to get pampered while I was working 60-hour weeks. And Ashley knew. She had to know where that money was coming from. The absolute kicker? I found out Maddie's parents cut her off financially 4 months ago. Her dad called her a spoiled, irresponsible adult and said she needed to learn to support herself. That is why she was really evicted. She couldn't pay rent anymore because mommy and daddy's money dried up, so she found herself a replacement ATM. Me, the fight 2 days ago. It wasn't random. She was pissed because I had started asking questions about her job search, and she knew her time was running out. The public humiliation was her attempt to put me in my place, to make me feel so small and embarrassed that I had shut up and go back to being her silent wallet. She miscalculated. Since I posted, the aftermath has been educational. She has gone through every manipulation tactic in the book. Tears, apologies, anger, threats, and now she is trying seduction. Yesterday she wore the dress from our first date and made my favorite dinner. It is like watching someone play a character they don't really understand. The woman I thought I was dating never actually existed. The 30-day notice stands, but honestly, after finding out about the credit card abuse and the lies about her parents, I am wondering if I should just accelerate the timeline. Thoughts. Edit. For those asking about the credit card stuff. Yes, I have already cut off her access to everything. And before anyone lectures me about authorized user versus theft, she had permission for groceries and emergencies, not spa weekends and designer shopping sprees. Update 2, you guys. I cannot believe what I discovered this week. I thought the credit card abuse was the worst of it. I was so wrong. Remember Ashley, Maddie's best friend, the one who went on that $800 spa weekend with my money? Well, turns out Ashley's been keeping some pretty significant secrets. It started when I ran into her at the grocery store 3 days ago. She looked uncomfortable as hell when she saw me, kept trying to end the conversation quickly, but something in her body language was screaming guilt. So I decided to do something I am not proud of, but I had to know. I asked her directly, Ashley, is there something you think I should know about Maddie? The floodgates opened. Apparently, Maddie has been seeing someone else for the past 2 months. A guy named Tyler who she met at some party. Ashley showed me Instagram posts that Maddie made her promise not to tell me about photos of them together at restaurants, clubs, even a weekend trip to the coast that happened when Maddie told me she was visiting her sick grandmother. But here's the truly sick part. Tyler doesn't have money. He is a struggling musician who can barely pay his own rent. So Maddie's been using my credit cards to fund their relationship. Those expensive dinners I thought she was having with girlfriends. Date nights with Tyler, that girl's spa weekend. She and Tyler went to a couple's retreat, and Ashley covered for her. I have been unknowingly financing my girlfriend's affair for 2 months. Ashley said she felt horrible about it. But Maddie convinced her that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me, and that she was planning to break up with me anyway once she figured things out with Tyler. Figured things out, like I am some backup plan while she test drives her real choice. When I got home, I didn't confront Maddie immediately. Instead, I did what I do best. I gathered evidence. Credit card statements, phone records. She is on my family plan. Everything. The paper trail was damning. Restaurant charges on nights she claimed to be working late. Hotel bookings when she said she was staying at Ashley's. Even concert tickets for her and Tyler bought with my card, the most painful discovery. She had been texting Tyler during our anniversary dinner last month. while I was giving a speech about how grateful I was to have her in my life. She was sexting another man under the table. Last night, I finally confronted her. Not with yelling or drama. I just laid out the evidence like a presentation. Credit card statements, Instagram screenshots. Ashley had sent me everything arranged chronologically. She went through the predictable cycle, denial, then anger. You went through my private stuff, then trying to flip it back on me. If you were a better boyfriend, I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. And finally, desperate bargaining. It didn't mean anything. I will end it right now. Please don't throw away what we have. I just sat there listening, feeling this weird sense of closure. This wasn't a relationship ending. It was a lie being exposed. Maddie, I said when she finished her performance, our arrangement ends in 2 weeks. That timeline hasn't changed. The only difference is now I know exactly who you really are. She has been alternating between begging and threats ever since. This morning she said, if I don't let her stay, she will tell everyone I am an abusive, controlling freak who financially trapped her. I almost laughed. After what she screamed in the hallway 2 weeks ago, what could she possibly say that would be worse than calling me her personal ATM? 2 weeks left. I have already scheduled professional cleaners and a locksmith. The storage unit I rented for her stuff is paid up. Tyler's welcome to have her. He just will not have my money funding their relationship anymore. Edit. For those asking why Ashley finally told me, apparently Tyler found out about me and threatened to leave Maddie unless she chose. That is when Ashley realized this was going to blow up anyway and decided to give me a heads up. Honestly, I am grateful. Better to know the truth. Update 3. Well, Reddit. The saga is officially over, and holy shit, what a ride it has been. Maddie moved out exactly on schedule 2 weeks ago. But the story doesn't end there, because yesterday, and I kid you not, she showed up at my door begging to move back in. Just like the title predicted. Let me tell you about her final 2 weeks in my apartment first. Because it was like watching someone's entire life strategy implode in real time. Once she realized I wasn't budging on the timeline, she went into full panic mode. Tyler, her affair partner, suddenly wasn't so interested in being her knight in shining armor when he found out she would be homeless and broke. Shocking. I know. She tried every angle to stay, promised to pay rent. With what money? Offered to sign a formal contract. Too little, too late. Even suggested we could be roommates, and she would sleep on the couch. Absolutely not. The last week was pure desperation. She had been calling everyone in her contact list looking for somewhere to stay. Ashley was too busy with work stress. Other friends had excuse after excuse. Turns out when you cannot fund the party anymore, your social circle disappears pretty quickly. Her parents? Remember how they cut her off for being irresponsible? Yeah, they weren't eager to welcome their lying, cheating daughter back home either. Moving day was almost anticlimactic. I hired professional movers, charged to her credit card the last expense I was legally obligated to cover. They packed up her room in under 2 hours. She just sat on the floor watching, looking completely defeated. When it was done, she stood by my front door and said, "You are really going to let me be homeless?" "You are not going to be homeless," I replied. "You are going to figure out how to be an independent adult, just like everyone else has to." She dropped the key in my hand and walked away with just a suitcase. Nowhere to go. I thought that was the end. I changed the locks, had the place deep cleaned, rearranged the furniture. The silence was incredible. For 2 weeks, I had the most peaceful, drama-free existence I had had in months. Then yesterday happened. My buzzer rang around 7 p.m. It was Maddie. Her voice small and shaky through the intercom. "Please, can we just talk? I really need to explain some things." Against my better judgment, and honestly just out of curiosity about how this would play out, I let her up. She looked rough. Really rough. Thinner, clothes wrinkled, that confident spark in her eyes completely gone. She explained that she had been couch surfing with various friends, but had worn out her welcome everywhere. Tyler had dumped her after 3 days when he realized she was actually broke. Ashley was in Europe, convenient timing, and ignoring her texts. "I just need somewhere to stay for a little while," she begged. Actual tears in her eyes. "Just until I can get back on my feet. I will do anything. I will get a job. I will pay you back. I promise everything will be different." I let her finish. I didn't interrupt or argue. When she was done, I looked at her and said the simplest word in the English language. "Number, why are you being like this?" she cried. "I know I messed up," I said I was sorry. "This isn't about you messing up," I explained calmly. "This is about you showing me exactly who you are. Do you remember what you screamed in the hallway? You said I wasn't a real man, that I was just your personal ATM machine. You defined our relationship as a transaction, Maddie. You set the terms." I continued. "You were providing companionship. I was providing financial support. When your companionship became disrespectful, dishonest, and included cheating on me with another man using my money, well, the transaction was terminated. It is that simple." "It wasn't just a transaction," she sobbed. "I loved you. Your actions proved otherwise," I said. "You used that public performance to try and humiliate me, to put me in my place. But you miscalculated. You forgot that an ATM can be turned off." I walked to the door and opened it. "I wish you the best of luck figuring things out. Goodbye, Maddie." She stared at me for a long moment, searching for any crack in my resolve. She found none. She turned and walked out, and I closed the door on that chapter of my life for good. Mrs. Thompson told me this morning that Maddie's parents finally drove up from 2 states away to collect her and her stuff from the storage unit. Apparently she has moved back in with them at age 28, with no job, no relationship, and no money. Her social media has gone completely dark. The vibrant, exciting puzzle I had once been so curious about had been solved, and the picture was pretty ugly. My revenge wasn't dramatic or elaborate. I didn't need to yell or cause scenes. I just took her at her word. She wanted our relationship to be transactional, so I treated it exactly like that. And when the terms were breached repeatedly and spectacularly, I simply closed the account. She didn't lose her home because I was cruel. She lost it because she fundamentally misunderstood the terms of her own deal. To everyone who supported me through this, thank you. To everyone who said I was heartless, you are entitled to your opinion. But I sleep great at night knowing I have my self-respect and my money back. The apartment is peaceful. My bank account is my own again. And I am reminded why being single isn't actually a bad thing. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone face the natural consequences of their own choices.